Miami at the time was the hottest, sexiest, most dangerous place that you could imagine. That made it the most attractive place that I could imagine. To me, there's nothing sexier than a hot June night in Miami.
I grew up in Fairfield County, Connecticut, which is very, very suburban. And my first realization of Miami was Miami Vice.
There are times and places and periods that are so intriguing.
It was hedonistic. It was anything goes.
Miami in the 80s is one of those times and places.
I remember going to high school and I had taken my dad's white Blazer.
The sexiest place in the world. The sexiest place in the world.
And why? It's all about drugs.
And I used to rock the t-shirt and the white Blazer.
There would be beautiful women everywhere.
And throw on some jeans.
Miami in the 80s became the port for the entry of cocaine into the United States.
With some of those Don Johnson shoes with no socks.
Everybody was having a good time. There were lots of drugs. Everybody was high. Everybody was drunk.
I idolized that shit.
As a matter of fact, you could go out on South Beach back in those days and just see lines of people across the sand.
Miami in the 80s was the biggest resource that started the massive cocaine addictive nature for a lot of people in America.
It looks gorgeous.
You sort of did whatever you wanted to do, and if you ended up on the beach at 4 o'clock without your clothes on, that's just what people did.
It's exciting.
It was wonderful. I mean, I can't even think about it without getting misty-eyed.
We're talking about wanting to try to make a TV show that we'd really love to work on, and our first thought was, wow, let's tell some stories about Miami. Miami was a really colorful place to grow up in. It was a cool place. It was crazy.
Well, I grew up here, and it was a very quiet, very wonderful place to grow up. In 1980, everything changed.
I grew up in the 80s, so with all the stuff going on, I remember walking downtown with my grandmother, and I'd see people walking around with guns all the time.
Drugs, money, and violence. That's what Miami was all about in the 1980s.
As a kid, I didn't know it. I didn't have perspective. You were living there, that was just your home. The myth I would hear as I'd go other places and I tell people, oh, I'm from Miami, they would be like, wow, what's it like? And you know, it was hard for me, it was my home. Being Cuban American and growing up in Miami, it was great. It felt really familiar. A lot of culture, a lot of Cuban culture. It's a big melting pot.
I mean, that's Miami, and it's cool. That's what makes it so unique, makes it so rich, and gives it such texture.
It's funny that the director of our episodes, Steve Peterson, actually appeared in an episode of Miami Vice as a child. He's tried to suppress those pictures, but we have them somewhere.
When I was a kid, my mom would cart me around at like castings. I looked a lot more Asian when I was younger, so I would get cast as like the token Asian kid. There was one, I was a homeless Taiwanese kid in an alleyway, and then the second one, I was the son of a Japanese businessman who was buying a cryogenic chamber with a frozen reggae guy in it.
I didn't know that before we came together and started working together, but yeah, I find that to be funny.
And that was really fun. It was cool because both times were the biggest shoots I'd been on. I was just so interested in the guys working the gear and the cameras and how it was being shot. So it's fun to be able to do a new incarnation of crime in Miami in the 80s, which the first iteration of that was Vice, Miami Vice. My most favorite days of the shoot were shooting the B-roll. It wasn't story, we weren't driven by this crazy schedule and having to tell a story. We were just tasked with going out there and capturing beautiful images of the city. We were on boats shooting the city from the water. We were in the helicopter shooting aerials of the city, you know, from the sky. We go all over the city and shoot in the Everglades and airboats and alligators and flamingos and parrots and hot girls on the beach and people fishing off the pier and old guys playing dominoes and cigar shops. That was really cool.
The thing that everybody kind of overlooks, location is another character. The feel that you get from a show really is so based on the feel of the place. It's that sense of place. And boy, do you ever get a sense of place for Miami in the 80s in this series.
I think Miami was a really big part of helping the things that I think are cool or fun or creative or helping to be a part of my aesthetic. Because Miami was such a melting pot of everything, of people, of culture, of religion, of language, of food, of music, experience, everything. It was just a colorful way to look at the world and to look at things and to look at art and media and communication and the way people communicate. I think some other places may be more bland in terms of diversity, but Miami has a lot of diversity, so I guess I was really fortunate that way.
And it was a place where people came to sort of gawk. And it was kind of cool living in a place that people came to see. And I would think, you know, I'm really lucky. I live here. This is my daily life. I tried never to forget that.